Hi guys! Welcome back to my channel. Ang aking ibabahagi ngayon ay kung paano nabuo ang Katipunan or the founding of the Katipunan. The founding of the Katipunan. In the days following the arrest of Dr. Jose Rizal, some patriotic Filipinos were convinced that the call for reforms had already failed. They knew that the Spaniards would never implement social, political reforms in the country. Although they recognized the great contribution of the propagandists, they believed that the revolution for independence was the only solution to end the tyrannical Spanish rule in the Philippines. On July 7, 1892, Andres Bonifacio led the founding in Manila of the Nationalistic and Revolutionary Society that aimed to oust the Spaniards. This secret society was Katipunan or the KKK, Kataas-taasang Kagalang-galang Katipunan ng mga anak ng bayan or KKK. Bonifacio's co-founder were Ladislao Diwa, Diodato Arellano, Valentin Diaz, Teodoro Plata, and many others. They were former members of La Liga Filipina and were greatly influenced by the nationalistic ideals of propaganda movement. Actually, ang naglunsad or ang namuno noon ng La Liga Filipina ay walang iba kundi ang Dr. Jose Rizal. But then, pagkatapos, after the execution, ay binuo ni Andres Bonifacio ang KKK upang ipagpatuloy ang pakikipaglaban sa mga Spaniards. Most of them were also Freemasons, members of the secret society that believe in ideas of freedom, equality, and liberty. Patuloy nilang ipinaglaban dahil alam nila na wala nang balak pa ang Spaniards na magbigay ng reforma ng Pilipinas. The Katipunan's organization include Kataas-taasang Sangguniang or Supreme Council, the Sangguniang Bayan Provincial Council, and the Sangguniang Barangay o Barangay Council. It also had the Judicial Council known as the Sangguniang Hukuman. In the Katipunan election of 1892, the first Supreme Council members were Diodato Arellano as a president or Supremo, Andres Bonifacio as comptroller, Ladislao Diwa as the fiscal, Teodoro Plata as secretary, and Valentin Diaz as treasurer. In 1893, new members of the Katipunan were elected. These were Roman Basa as president, Andres Bonifacio as fiscal, Jose Torino Santiago as secretary, Vicente Molina as treasurer, and Restituto Javier, Teodoro Plata, Ladislao Diwa, Bricio Brigado Pantas, and Teodoro Gonzales as councilors. Emilio Jacinto was known as the brain of Katipunan, formulated the Cartilla of the Katipunan. The Cartilla was a primer for new members of the secret organization. In 1895, Andres Bonifacio replaced Roman Basa as Supremo. He held the position until Tejeros Convention in Cavite established a revolutionary government in 1897. Katipunan membership. The new members of the Katipunan were first recruited through the so-called triangle method. This was designed to protect the identity of the Katipuneros. In this method, the Katipunero would recruit two people who do not know each other. Their only contact was the one who recruited them. So noon pa man ay ginagawa na ang pyramid, o tinatawag natin, or the triangle method. Kailangan ang ma-recruit nila ay merong left and right na hindi magkakakilala para itago ang pagkakakilanlan sa mga Katipuneros sapagkat bawal noon. Kapag nahuli sila ng mga Spaniards, they might be executed. Once a recruit was accepted in the society, he would be initiated through a blood compact to show his commitment. Ano yung blood compact? Hihiwain nila yung kanilang race at pagsamasamahin yung dugo nila. Okay? Ipahid nila doon, pagpatak ng dugo para yun ay sign, okay, ng commitment. Ganun katindi ang kanilang recruitment. He should also be willing to pay the membership fee at meron bayad. By the end of 1892, the leadership of Katipunan noticed that recruitment of members was progressing very slowly. Mabagal, bihira lang ang nagjo-join kasi nga may bayad. Because of this, they changed their policy and started permitting the Katipuneros to recruit as many new members as possible. However, they cautioned that maintaining secrecy should be still the foremost rule. After a few months, the membership of the Katipuneros increased. So, binago nila yung policy nila para dumami. Okay, wala nang bayad. Okay, ang membership. Okay, pwede na silang mag-recruit kahit gaano karami. Kailangan lang ma-maintain nila yung kanilang lihim kasi bawal na bawal. Okay, so Katipuneros were classified into 3 ranks. Each rank used a password. Bakit kailangan may password? Kasi nga hindi sila magkakakilala. Halimbawa, meron silang pagpupulong, pag pumunta sila doon, tatanungin lang sila kung anong password nila. Okay, so pag sinabing anak bayan, alam na, okay na sila ay katipon or bago lang. Kapag ka second grade, okay, kawal na, gombursa ang kanilang password. And third one, yung medyo pinakamatagal na ay bayani, or they are at third grade, at ang kanilang password ay Rizal. Pagpasok nila sa room na kung saan sila mag-meeting, sasabihin lang nila Rizal. So, sila na ang nagkakaintindihan. Women of Dakatipunan. The women of membership of Dakatipunan was first composed of the relative of Katipuneros, propagandists, and Freemasons. This was strictly imposed to keep the society secret. The first women auxiliary group of the Katipunan was established in 1893. Among the first Katipuneras were Gregorio de Jesus, Marina Dizon, and Jose Rizal sisters Josefa Rizal and Trinidad Rizal. The women of Katipuneros played important roles during the early stages of Katipunan. Their works consisted of keeping important documents, concealing the Katipuneros during important meetings, and propagating the ideas of the Katipunan. Gregoria de Jesus, who became Andres Bonifacio's wife, later proved to be an important member of society. When she served as the official keeper of the Katipunan important documents, she was also head at the women's chapter of the Katipunan. She also made a simple red flag for the Katipunan, which is the KKK. Marina Dizon also guarded Katipunan documents. She became a women group secretary and she also helped in the recruitment of many women members. Siya yung recruiter. Okay, and Melchora Aquino, also known as Tandang Sora, was considered the mother of Katipunan. She greatly helped the Katipuneros during the revolution, and she did not welcome the revolutionaries into her home. She welcomed all the revolutionaries in her home but also attended to their medical needs, especially the wounded Katipuneros. So he was the one who took care or who takes care of those who are wounded. Next is Teresa Magbanwa, known as the Visayan Joan Arc. Was a member of the Panay branch of Katipunan. She led some successful military attacks against the Spaniards. Next is Trinidad Texon. Was an important member of the Katipunan. She showed outstanding dedication to the ideals of the Katipunan and she became a general. and led attacks against the Spaniards in Biak na Bato, Bulacan. So, siya ay isa sa mga pinakamatapang na miyembro ng Katipuneras. Kalayaan. The Kalayaan was the official publications of the Katipunan. Ito yung ginawa nilang parang dyaryo nila para mabasa, isusulat nila dito yung mga hinaing, kung ano na nangyayari, para mabasa ng mga tao. Okay, it first came out in March 1896 and it contained the revolutionary ideas of the organization. The writers of the Kalayaan used pen names to conceal their identities from the Spanish authorities. So, gumamit sila ng mga alias para hindi makilala ng mga otoridad na Espanyol kung sino ang sumulat nito. Okay, Andres Bonifacio, ang ginamit niya ay Agapito Bagumbayan. Okay, Emilio Jacinto used Pinkian and Dimas Ilaw. And while Dr. Pio Valenzuela used Madlang Awa. Emilio Jacinto was the editor of the Kalayaan. Although the Kalayaan did not last long, it was successful in attracting new members to the Katipunan. Discovery of the Katipunan. Before the end of 1895, the Spanish authorities already suspected that there was a secret society leading a revolutionary cause against them. But except for the rumors, they lack of evidence to prove the existence. In August 1896, the quarrel between Katipuneros Teodoro Patino and Apolinario de la Cruz finally led to the discovery of Katipunan. Okay, at that time, they were both working in the Diario de Manila printing office. Okay. It was said that Patino revealed the existence of the Katipunan to his sister who lived in an orphanage in Manila. Upon hearing the story, Patino's sister cried. This was overheard by a man who wasted no time to find out what upset Patino's sister. After being forced to retell his story, Patino was asked to confess to Father Mariano Hill, the parish priest in Tondo, Manila. Immediately after hearing Patino's confession, Father Hill went to the Spanish authorities, and on August 19, 1896, they raided the printing shop in Diario de Manila, where they discovered enough evidence about the existence of the Katipunan. Before the day ended, the Spanish authorities raided homes, arrested alleged members and secret organizations. Those arrested along with Apolinario de la Cruz were Roman Basa, Teodora Plata, Vicente Molina, Hermogenildo de los Reyes, kay Jose Trinidad, Pedro Nicodemus, Feliciano del Rosario, Gervasio Samson, and Doroteo Dominguez, and others. They were imprisoned and later executed by firing squad on February 6, 1897. Cry of Pugadlawin. On the day the Katipunan was discovered, Andres Bonifacio moved to Balintawak to avoid arrest. He also ordered the Katipuneros to go to Balintawak for a meeting. 2 days later, hundreds of Katipuneros who arrived in Balintawak went to Sitio Kangkong. On the following day, the group moved to Sitio Pugadlawin. On August 23, 1896, the Katipuneros met at the yard of Juan Ramos, the son of Melchora Aquino, and held a meeting presided by Andres Bonifacio. In that meeting, the Katipuneros shouted their commitment to the revolution. As a symbol of this pledge, they brought out their cedulas, and tore them to pieces while shouting the word, "Long live Philippines," and "Long live Katipunan." This event was dubbed by historians as the Cry of the Pugadlawin. This event marked the declaration of war against the Spanish colonial government. Outbreak of the Philippine Revolution. On August 25, 1896, the first revolutionary encounter happened in Sitio Pasong Tamo, Caloocan. When the Spaniards gained the upper hand, Bonifacio and his men retreated to Marikina and then moved to San Mateo, Rizal. In the following days, the revolution spread to the neighboring provinces of Manila. In response, the Spaniards terrorized the people, arresting civilians. Many were either detained, tortured, killed, and banished. This included the wealthy Filipino like Francisco Rojas, Telefostero, Swedian, and Jacinto Limhap. They were executed in January 11, 1897 at Bagumbayan Field. On August 27, Bonifacio called the people to join revolution. He also warned that any person who would work against the cause of the revolution would be regarded as a traitor and an enemy of the people. During that time, Bonifacio already planned to attack Manila, but because Manila was heavily guarded, they lacked firearms and ammunition, and plan was not carried out. They attacked the garrison in San Juan instead. So, execution of Jose Rizal. In 1896, before the outbreak of the revolution, Rizal was accepted to work as a doctor in Spain Army in Cuba. When the Katipunan was discovered, he was already on his way to Spain. He was implicated in the revolution and was ordered to be detained in Spain. He was deported to Manila to face the trial for the changes of and it was worth nothing but when Rizal was still on the exile in Dapitan. Andres Bonifacio and his councilors decided to enlist the support of the revolution. On August 30, 1896, Governor General Ramon Blanco placed Manila under martial law, as well as the provinces of Cavite, Laguna, Batangas, Bulacan, Pampanga, Tarlac, and Nueva Ecija. These were 8 provinces that revolted against the Spaniards. These places are how symbolized by the 8 rays of the sun in the Philippine flag. Okay, so he was sentenced to die by firing squad. On December 30, 1896, he was executed at Bagumbayan Field in Manila. Okay, so, and then the execution of Rizal added to defile the revolution. After his death, the Katipuneros often shouted in the battles of words, "Mabuhay ang Katagalugan, mabuhay si Dr. Jose Rizal." To get Rizal's opinion, when Rizal was still in Dapitan, To the Rizal opinion, Andres Bonifacio sent Pio Valenzuela to Dapitan. During their talk, Rizal told Valenzuela that the Filipinos were not yet ready for the time. It was not yet ripe for a revolution. In the later part of 1896, the court ruled that Rizal was guilty of having a hand in the revolution. Magdalo, if the faction wanted to and the Magdalo faction wanted to transform Katipunan into revolutionary government, and this idea was opposed by the Magdiwang faction. As a result of this agreement, the Katipuneros from the faction refused to reinforce the Katipuneros from the other faction during battles. Because of this, the Katipunan in Cavite suffered more losses. December 1896, Andres Bonifacio was requested to help solve the conflict between two factions. However, the call for the two factions to unite was disregarded. So, nagkaroon ng isa ito sa mga naging dahilan kung bakit sila natalo sa mga revolutionary. Kasi nagkaroon sila ng disunity. Okay? So, yun ang naging problema nila. Naging dalawa ng grupo, ang revolutionary, ang Magdalo, at ang Magdiwang. Okay, so this idea was opposed by Magdiwang faction. Hindi sila magkasundo. Okay, as a result, Katipunan from one faction refused to reinforce Katipuneros from the other faction during battles. So, nasa Cavite na sila. So, that brings great losses in their group. On December 1896, Andres Bonifacio was requested to help to solve the conflict between two factions. However, the call of the two factions to unite was disregarded. Hindi naging matuloy ang kanilang meeting kasi nagkagulo sila at si Andres Bonifacio ang nagpunta para siya ang mamagitan sa kanila, pero dinisregard nila. Katipunan faction in Cavite. Before the end of 1896, Cavite became the center of revolution kasi doon nagpunta yung mga grupo ni Bonifacio. When Spaniards started to deploy large forces in Cavite, the Katipuneros suffered heavy losses. Kasi nung malaman na ng mga Espanyol na marami na sila doon, nagpadala ng marami. Na sundalo ang Spaniards. At dahil hindi sila nagkasundo ang dalawang grupo, iyon ay malaking ang nawala sa kanila. Marami ang nalagas. Worse, the Katipunero in Cavite is split into two factions. The Magdiwang faction headed by Mariano Alvarez and Magdalo faction headed by Baldomero Aguinaldo. Kaya kung makikita nyo doon, meron lugar sa Cavite na Alvarez ang nakalagay, Mariano Alvarez. So, meron din Tejeros Convention, kaya na nakikita ninyo doon. Kasi ito yon ang Cavite ang naging sentro noon ng mga lugar ng mga Katipuneros. Si Baldomero Aguinaldo ay kapatid ni General Emilio Aguinaldo. Contrary to what Bonifacio expected, the meeting turned into convention. Naging convention ang meeting. The members of the Magdalo faction moved to establish a revolutionary government that would replace the Katipunan. Caught in the situation, Bonifacio decided to preside over convention. During the proceedings, the election of officials of the revolutionary government was proposed. In the election, Bonifacio lost the presidency to Emilio Aguinaldo, who was then a popular revolutionary figure in Cavite. So, Mariano Trias was elected as vice president, Artemio Ricarte as captain general, and Emilio Riego de Dios as director of the war. So, the Tejeros Convention, kaya kung pumunta kayo ng Cavite, kaya pumunta kayo ng Rosario, nandoon banda yung sinasabi nilang Tejeros. Okay, in 1897, Andres Bonifacio was again invited to Cavite to mediate para mamagitan between Magdalo and Magdiwang factions kasi nagkaroon ng away ang dalawang grupo, kaya pinakiusapan na si Andres Bonifacio ang mamagitan. He also expected to a discussion on the revolutionary actions in Cavite to avoid more losses. The meeting was held in March 1897 at Tejeros, San Francisco de Malabon, known now as the General Trias. On the day after Tejeros Convention, Andres Bonifacio issued a resolution explaining his reason why he was not honoring the result of Tejeros Convention. He then went to Naik, Cavite, issued military agreement stating that formation of another government. When Andres Bonifacio was elected as the Director of the Interior, Daniel Tirona, a member of Magdalo faction, protested against Bonifacio election. He reasoned that Bonifacio was not qualified for the position because of his low education background. Angered by the lack of respect for his person as a founder of Katipunan, Bonifacio angrily declared that the result of the convention were null and void. During the arrest, Andres Bonifacio's brother Siriaco was shot dead and his other brother Procopio was wounded. On May 4, 1897, the Bonifacio brothers faced the trial under Revolutionary Court in the municipality of Maragondon, Cavite. This court judged Bonifacio and his brother guilty of treason and sentenced them to death. The death of Andres Bonifacio. Because of Andres Bonifacio's defiance on the new revolution government created by Emilio Aguinaldo and his followers, Aguinaldo ordered the arrest of Andres Bonifacio. When Aguinaldo's men reached camp of Bonifacio, they announced their presence through gunshots. Nagpaputok sila kaagad. After hearing the shots, Bonifacio went out to investigate and ask Aguinaldo's men why they had to fire and their brothers who were fighting for the same cause. The arresting officers ignored Bonifacio. And then followed the Republic of Biak na Bato. By December 1896, the Spaniards had heightened their military campaign against the revolutionaries. In May 1897, Cavite was recaptured by the Spaniards. This forced Aguinaldo and his men to move to Cavite to Batangas. They later retreated in San Miguel, Bulacan, where established headquarters. They were joined by the other groups of Katipuneros from the other parts of Central Luzon. On May 10, 1897, Andres Bonifacio and his brother Procopio were executed in Maragondon, Cavite. With Bonifacio's death, the leadership of the revolution was effectively fully transferred to the hands of Emilio Aguinaldo. The death of Bonifacio was followed by the defeat of the forces of Aguinaldo. Eventually, Cavite fell into the hands of the Spaniards. From August to November 1897, Pedro Paterno mediated the truce between the revolutionaries and the Spanish government. This truce was known as the Pact of Biak na Bato. In July 1897, Aguinaldo established a republican government at Biak na Bato in Bulacan. This became known as Biak na Bato Republic. In the Biak na Bato Constitution, they declared the separation of Philippines from Spain. Written in this constitution were the following words: the separation of the Philippines from the Spanish monarchy and their formation into the independent state with its own government called the Philippine Republic has been the end sought by the revolution in the existing war begun on 24th of August 1896. Under this peace treaty, Aguinaldo and some of his men would go into revolutionary exile in Hong Kong. In return, the Spanish government would pay the money in 3 installments as compensation for Filipino victims of the war. On December 27, 1897, Aguinaldo and some leaders of the Katipunan left for Hong Kong. However, the truce eventually failed. Months after the signing of the peace agreement, fighting between Filipinos and the Spaniards resumed. So that's all, guys. Thank you very much for joining, and please for listening, and viewing. Okay, and thank you for watching. Okay, and please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more updates and more videos. Thank you.